Welcome to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad. And in this series, Coaching Masters, we are highlighting master teachers, how they became teachers, what they teach, and most importantly, why they teach, so that you can see not just the wisdom, but the path behind the wisdom, hopefully to inspire yours. Today's guest is someone who embodies reinvention and midlife mastery, Wendy Valentine. Wendy is a reinvention expert, empowerment coach, and the author of Women Waking Up, the Midlife Manifesto for Passion, Purpose, and Play. She's also the creator and host of the Midlife Makeover Show, the #1 podcast inspiring women worldwide to embrace midlife as a powerful new beginning. In our talk, hopefully, Wendy's going to share how she helps people discover their unique superpower and how to live from it. As Carl Jung famously said, life really does begin at 40. Until then, you're just doing research. So her story from heartbreak, debt, and illness to driving a 25-foot RV into her future self is something that's going to prove that point to you brilliantly. And we're hopefully going to also talk about some of her tools for radical reset, like the Wheel of Midlife, a 7-step freedom process to guide you, like thousands of people, to reclaim joy and play in your second act. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be a teacher of transformation, or if you're standing at your own crossroads right now, this conversation is going to light the way. Wendy, there was a Virginia Slims ad in the 90s that I was just revisiting and made me think of you. And the catchphrase was, "You've come a long way, baby."
Baby.
Well, welcome to the show.
You remember? I remember. I have come a long way. Oh my God. And going back to what you said in the very beginning of the intro about great teachers, we become great teachers by becoming great students.
Yeah,
right?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, we learn through our own lives, and that's where it's at. There's one thing, I don't know about you, but on your podcast and with my podcast, every single person that has been on my show has been a guinea pig for their own teachings. And I think that's so cool. And now I think about that as I move forward in life. I'm like, all right, what can I learn? I even shared something with you before we hit record. And with that experience alone, I was like, what can I learn from this so that I can turn around and teach it to the rest of the world? So I think that's so important for all of us to really find the wisdom in the woes. There's always a lesson in there somewhere. And you may not receive it right away. I mean, I had my greatest lesson in life. Did not hit me until I was 50 years old, sitting on top of a picnic table in Malibu, California. That was my greatest lesson. It only took me 50 years. I'm 52 now. So I've lived at least 2 years with this beautiful lesson. Do you want to hear what it is?
Yes, of course. I was just going to say, are you going to tell us what that lesson was? But I really do love and appreciate enormously that we charge forth by talking about being a great student, being a great teacher, and how intricately intertwined they are, because your path is truly the exemplary path, as I've demonstrated with so many teachers on this remarkably successful series. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We cannot shortcut our way into teaching. We can only revel in the process of the learning. And so in Malibu, on the picnic table, what did you learn?
This was after I had already taken off in the RV, and I was sitting on top of the picnic table looking out at the sunset there in California. And going back a little bit, a few decades, I was abandoned as a little girl. And ever since then, I always feared being abandoned. And because of that, I became really good at being a perfectionist, a codependent, a people pleaser, approval seeker, you name it. I rocked all of those roles in my life to avoid being abandoned. So here I am, 50 years old, sitting on top of that picnic table, and all of a sudden just hit me out of the blue that I became my greatest fear. And I ended up abandoning myself. For all those decades, I was fearing everybody else abandoning me, but really I was abandoning myself by not being myself, by not allowing myself to shine, by staying in this safe little turtle shell. And I had this conversation with little, 9-year-old Wendy that day in Malibu, and I was like, girl, I got you. You can relax now. You don't have to, like, I will take care of this. Like, it
Yeah.
is time for us to shine. And I think that's one of the greatest things is for us to give ourselves permission. Very rarely do we do that. We stand in our own way. We hold
Yeah.
ourselves back. And it's and when you think about it, when you kind of like zoom out of it, you look at your your little self down here on planet Earth and like, why are we wasting so much time with the limiting beliefs and the doubts and the fears? It's like, oh my gosh, it's just pointless. I
I
mean,
mean, I get that. I do. But
yeah.
before we trivialize people's real and
Hmm.
ongoing stagnation, the epiphany that you had is fundamental. And that without that, you cannot just dismiss 50 years of limiting beliefs. You have to reach a very profound understanding. An epiphany is a profound understanding. It's not just an intellectual understanding in your physical being that I am, in fact, what has been in my way. It's not enough to just sing along to Taylor Swift. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. It's simply not that simple. And so
Yeah.
you reached that epiphany and you reached it honestly. So let's talk a little bit way back so that people don't fall under the illusion that you experienced sudden enlightenment on a picnic table in Malibu. You've been you were working in healthcare for a very long time. You had a completely different life. Today you are a renowned teacher, but this series is how we found our calling. So can you share the story before the collapse, through the collapse, and to the RV?
Yes, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the story because I love a good breakdown to breakthrough story. So I'm going to take you back 7 years ago. I was 45 years old, going through a divorce. I was unemployed, had at least 150 grand in debt, at least, maybe 200. Going through
Who's counting?
I was counting 201. Chronic illness. I had black mold toxicity, chronic Lyme disease. We'll toss in
Wow,
some menopause just for the fun of it.
super hard.
I know, empty nest. And within a 6 week period, my dog died, my cat died, and then my brother died. So, needless to say, I was a bit of a mess. I was suffering from depression, like first time probably in my whole life, like a full blown depression. Then I was experiencing panic attacks from watching my dog, my cat, and my brother die. And I just, I had this moment, literally lying on the bathroom floor, bawling my eyes out. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be turning 50 years old. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing with my life? And even though I had spent 20 plus years in the healthcare industry, I hated it. It was just a job to survive. It was a job to do. And I all of a sudden had this vision of driving an RV across the country. And maybe looking back, maybe it was kind of like an escape dream of mine. Like, I just want to get the hell out of here. I just want to take off in an RV. And then, but like, I was really excited about the thought of it. And as I was laying there on the bathroom floor, I was like, let me just entertain this idea for a minute. Like, what if I actually made this dream come true? And then the doubt started creeping in. Well, Wendy, you don't have a job. How are you going to buy an RV? How are you going to do all this? That's silly. And I was having this battle in my head. And then I thought of on Seinfeld, George Costanza, when he had Opposite Day.
Yes, of course. You know, you and I talked about this in your
Yeah, I
podcast.
know.
It's my favorite
I'm telling you.
Seinfeld podcast. And my favorite Seinfeld episode, The
Yeah.
Opposite.
Yeah, and I thought, well, if everything I'd been applying in my life has not been working, or at least to what I really wanted and desired in my life, I was like,
Yeah.
what if I just do the opposite,
Yeah.
including my thoughts,
Yeah.
my beliefs, my values, everything. I was like, what if I just totally flip everything upside down? And from that moment forward, I got up off that bathroom floor and I thought, okay, where am I going to start? I mean, my life was a total mess, absolute mess. And the first thing I thought, I was like, well, I got to get a job.
Yeah.
We could start there. And I sent out my resume all over the country because I was living in Williamsburg, Virginia at the time. And I was like, you know what? I'll move anywhere, sure. And within a week, it's amazing when you take one step forward, how all of a sudden the stars will just start aligning for you. I get this job offer in Chicago selling new construction houses, which I had never done before. But I was like, you know what? What the hell? I'll go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 4 weeks later, I pack up everything in my house. I drive a U-Haul from Virginia to Illinois over a weekend, and I started my new job on Monday. And then I rocked that job, I must say. I was really good at it, but it wasn't for me. Like, I was really good at sales. But always in the back of my mind, I thought, I really want to be a writer. I always wanted to be an author. I always wanted to have my own show. So within probably a few months, as I was, chipping away at the mound of debt, and I was recovering from chronic illness, I was seeking therapy for the panic attacks and the depression, the whole nine yards. So I was working on myself all the way through this whole thing. And then I decided, it's like, you know what? If I'm going to take off in an RV, I'm going to need to have something to do. Just drive. Like, how am I going to fill up the gas, right? So that's when I decided I'm going to start my own podcast. And I discovered that actually listening to Kathy Heller's, I read her book, Don't Keep Your Day Job by Kathy Heller.
I love that book. That's a very charming book. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a simple, right? Sometimes the simplest teachings.
Sometimes it's a cute little book and that just wakes you up. Absolutely. I love that. I just want to underline for so many listeners out there, particularly those who wish to pivot their careers, and in particular to pivot their careers in a way that's a radical, quote unquote, departure from before. Number one, the opposite. What do you got to lose? You really do want to sit and chew on the Costanza line. It's actually Jerry Seinfeld's line. If every decision you've ever made was wrong, the opposite is likely to be right. In other words, what have you got to lose? Just try taking radical action in the opposite direction, because the voices in your head are for sure 1000% false. There are enough of us on the other side who demonstrate that your fears are nonsense. The second thing that I really love that you walked people through is the practicality of the transition. It doesn't have to be, let's jump into the abyss with no job and figure things out. People in debt do not have this privilege. I wasn't in debt, but I was broke as a joke. And when you're broke and have just lost everything, you remember I had a fire, I lost the cats, I lost everything. I didn't have the privilege of just going, hey, let's just have some fun for a year. So we do co-curricularly engage in temporary employment, and that you can rock those jobs. You can rock those jobs and you can be deeply grateful for them, because they are providing you with enough money to get the RV, to start the podcast, to acquire the coaching and the learning that you were pursuing at the time, and so on and so forth. So I really love that you walked us through so many of the practical portions of the transformation. And the road trip, that is what ends up birthing a platform, right?
Oh, for sure. What's interesting though, originally I was approached by another publisher to write a book for them. But they wanted the book that started after I took off in the RV. And I was like, but that's not the story. The story is how I got in the driver's seat to begin with, right? That's the story.
I totally agree. One of my biggest gripes with Eat, Pray, Love is that there's such a tiny dismissal of what happened before that it makes her seem like self-centered and weird. She just up and left the marriage. And I'm like, no, she probably had some years of real suffering that brought to such a breakdown.
Yeah,
would love to see that.
Right. And I love that you brought up earlier about it being temporary. Yeah. Because you have to remind yourself, and even though I wasn't crazy about that job, and especially driving sometimes an hour and a half each way to work in Chicago winter, and oh my God, it was awful. In my mind, I kept saying, it's temporary. Wendy, this is temporary. You can handle this. This is temporary. So yes, you sometimes have to take a job that you don't totally love, or live in a place you don't totally love. Like, just you'll get through it and you'll get to the other side and you'll realize later on that it's a stepping stone to get you to where you really want to be.
Yeah, and you talk about this in your book. I really want people to listen to this and see there's no shame in the game. The only shame is to abandon your dream because you run out of something like money, which is the stupidest reason to abandon your dreams. I'm sorry to say. In my case, I was not only, it's temporary, I was deeply grateful for the fact that my rent was paid and that I had enough money to make my videos, to invest in coaching, to invest in the creation of my business. The finding of deep gratitude for the temporary and the doing anything it takes to get you to the other side, that's the mindset that Wendy is embodying and demonstrating for you now. And I love that this ends up, of course, birthing a platform where you're attracting now publishers who are asking you for the very dreams that you had for all those years.
Speaking of, you said embodying, and that I would have to say is the number one thing that I did. I feel it's the number one thing that anyone can do, and that is embodying the person that you want to be. Mm-hmm. So before I even took off to Chicago in that U-Haul truck, I sat down, I'll never forget, on my little couch there, and I journaled about the Wendy that I wanted to be. Yeah. In detail. Yeah. How would she wake up in the morning? What would she say to herself when she looked in the mirror? How did she eat? How did she move? How did she dress? Like literally, I was designing a new woman. Yeah. And my Aunt Annie had told me, she's like, darling, you've always wanted to be an actress. So why don't you just act like the woman you want to become? I was like, ow, that's genius. Yeah. So every single day, I had my slippers sitting next to me in bed and I would put the slippers on and I was like, whoop, hi. And I literally just started acting. I was like, how would this woman act every single day? How would a woman act that gets out of debt? How does a woman act that starts her own show and becomes an author and takes off an intern? How does she act? How does she walk? How does she talk? Everything. So if you really embody that new person, you become that person. You literally wake up and you're like, oh. And like you said too, things just start to align. Everything, yes. It's quite.
But you do have to, caveat, you truly have to believe. In other words, you have to commit to the role. It's what I call committing to the role, because as your identity begins to expand, the old one hasn't died yet. This is one of the reasons why the midlife crisis is so very useful. As we know, the midlife crisis, according to Carl Jung, is essentially it's the death of an identity, or the deconstruction of an identity to allow for a new identity to emerge. Mm-hmm. And for you to actually let that happen, because many people, as we all know, are like, no, thank you. I don't want to let go.
Resisting change. Yeah.
You have to also let go of the former identity, and you have to fully commit to the role. And scripting, the exercise you just described, is a very wonderful exercise. Really put into great detail your vision. Sit with her, feel into her, and then start, if you can, making decisions from her vantage point rather than your vantage point. And so this is when you're already starting to practically lunge into teaching, because you have stumbled upon a personal tool that becomes a framework, right? Like the Wheel of Midlife.
Yep. Exactly. The Wheel of Midlife, I mean, a lot of us in coaching, we all know the Wheel of Life. I was like, let's call it the Wheel of Midlife, because I feel like actually when we get in our 40s and 50s, we forget to stop and evaluate where our life is at. Yeah. The kids are leaving the nest, our bodies are changing, our parents are aging. You need to take a look at your life, right? Mm. So yes. And before I even decided to, get a job, I sat down and I drew a circle on a piece of paper, divided it into 8 triangles, and then labeled them: family, finance, health, career, friends, love, leisure, and personal growth. And then on a scale of 1 to 10 for each category, 1 being totally dissatisfied, like wah, wah, wah. And then 10 being super duper satisfied, very happy in that category. And you just rank each category of where you're at that point in your life. That doesn't mean where you used to be or where you're gonna be, just where you are right now. Don't overthink it. And obviously at that time in my life, I think every single one of them was below a 4. Mm. And it was, And at first I got really depressed about that. I was like, oh my God, my life really is a mess. But then I thought, you have to start somewhere, right? A
That's
journey of
right.
1,000 miles begins with a single step. So I was like, we have to take a step forward. I have to. And I mean, my life depended on it. And I just I could not allow myself to continue to spiral downwards. I just couldn't. I had to save myself, right? No one else is going to save you but
Exactly. And
yourself.
even just taking the step of using your own tool to evaluate is a small step. Bea Bina was just on our podcast to talk. She's an embodiment coach. She talks about kitten steps. And I noticed in your book that one small step is very central also to your method. This is another radical and very important point for every listener out there. Many people, when they're looking at the transformation, particularly they want to start a business, they want to move into podcasting, etc. They see people like us, they see basically a finished product. What they don't
Mm.
notice is that this actually happened through teeny tiny steps, taken one at a time. No one has ever fallen ass back into this level of success. So, one small step is another enormous realization, which is let's just map it out and
Mhm.
understand what the delta is between where I am and where I want to go, and then just commit to taking the steps. This became pretty central to your method, right? Do you think that that's part of the reason why it's so effective?
Yeah, I do. And also I want to say, I mentioned before about being a perfectionist. I used to not take a step forward until I had the whole plan figured out, like in detail. And this time, again, just like George, I was like, what if I don't have the whole plan figured out? What
Yeah.
if I just freaking go for it and then just allow it to unfold? I mean, very really, like we stay even stuck to the plan. So like we're like hanging on to it, like gripping onto it, where it doesn't allow room for miracles or the spontaneity or the epiphanies
Yeah, that's right.
if we don't allow ourselves to, it's for example, let's say you wanted to get a Honda Accord next, right? Like that's your car that you want to get. And then as you drive around this afternoon, that's all you'd see is a bunch of Honda Accords. But you wouldn't see the red Ferrari or like you would just be looking for the Honda Accords. That's all you see. It's the same thing. It's like you have to keep your eyes open, your heart open, your mind open, and just be ready for whatever comes your way.
Yes.
Because there could be a miracle knocking at your door, but if you're so attached to that plan, you're not gonna receive it.
I love that. And I love the framing of taking small steps as simply an act of surrender, of faith, of self compassion, which of course is the opposite from the perfectionist state that really demands to know. But for those out there, and there are many in our audience who love you so much, who are slightly heavier on the perfectionist spectrum and might be more in analysis paralysis of art, but like Wendy, how? Can you walk us through the 7 steps to freedom that we today can represent because we're on the other side and why you believe they're
Mhm.
universal? Giving
Yes.
them a little taste, just a tiny taste of
Just
what's
a
in the book.
tiny taste of the 7 steps. So it's an acronym, freedom. And I came up with this because I lived it, literally. Those 2 years, it took me 2 years from that moment on the bathroom floor until getting behind that steering wheel, 2 years. And a really not rough 2 years, but I worked my arse off during those 2 years. And as I looked back at that time in my life, I was like, what did I really want? I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom from the old Wendy, right?
Yeah.
Letting go of her. I wanted freedom to just be me. And so as I looked back, I realized the blueprint, that journey of those 2 years and what I did.
Yeah.
So step one is to free yourself of limiting beliefs and self-sabotage.
Mm.
That's a big one. That's a big
That's a
one.
big one.
That's
Yeah.
a big one. That's the foundation right there.
That's 50% of the process right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still working on it. I'm a work
Yeah.
in progress.
All of us are.
Step two is to reset your life by
Yeah.
clearing out emotional and physical clutter. That's a whammy.
Yeah. It's tremendous. I love it.
Yeah, step three is envision a new future filled with vitality and confidence and joy. Step four is embrace and explore your passions, your purpose, your potential. I'll throw in another P, your power.
Yeah.
D is detach from tomorrow and start living for today, like right here, right now. O is own your best self. It's actually a different word in there, but I never know if I can cuss on shows.
No one is going to be offended.
Own your badass self
Yeah.
with unshakable boundaries and
Yeah.
self-worth.
Yeah.
That's a rough one too.
That's
And
the biggest one. That's when the real transition starts to happen when you've up leveled your worth. Yes.
and the boundaries.
Yeah.
We
Well, up
really
leveling your worth is up leveling your
we
boundaries.
have to, yeah, exactly. And then finally, step 7M is master yourself so that you
Yes.
stay grounded with life's inevitable ups and downs because we know
Yeah.
shit's always going to hit the fan. And you have to be prepared as much as you can. You can be as grounded as you possibly can so that you can pick yourself up off of that bathroom floor much quicker than you have in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not that you won't ever find yourself on the bathroom floor. It's just that you'll
Mhm.
know what to do. I love that. What I enjoy most about your story is there are many practitioners who move into the high performance sector and they really bypass an enormous amount of the work. But anybody who's actually been through the grueling cage fight with the soul that is the reclamation of identity, we know that there are exact steps. And that helps us not only to embody and role model it for you, but to actually teach it in the correct sequence. I really enjoyed how you broke that down in your book. I truly enjoyed also the entire chapter that was, of course, around the reclamation of your future, about finding your superpower. And I want to recommend that everybody in their 40s and 50s read this book. Why do you think someone in their 40s or 50s should read this book right now?
Great question. I feel like no matter what, and I was like this too, in your 20s and 30s, you're checking off all the boxes, right? Kids, career, marriage.
Literally, no matter what, even
Yeah,
if you
you're
need
like, this
us.
is what I gotta do. I'm supposed to do all these things.
Yeah.
And no matter what, still, when you get in your 40s and 50s, life is gonna change whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Your body is changing, you're going through perimenopause, menopause, whatever, empty nest, our parents are aging, our relationships are changing,
Yeah.
even when you really don't want them to be changing. So you have to stop. You have to pause and go, where am I at? And where do I want to be? Where do I want to be 10 years from now? I always think about 90-year-old Wendy. Like,
Yeah.
I want to take care of her. I want her to be saying to me, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing all the things to take care of me so that I can be happy at 90 years old, so that I can move my body and I can speak well. I can do all the things and I have good relationships and I'm happy. Like
Yeah.
I am every single day, I'm working for and playing for 90-year-old Wendy and 100 too.
One of the things I loved was that when you were actually playing for 50-year-old Wendy, when you said that at 45, you were like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
50. What am I doing? It is about the here and now. When we think about, there is actually something known as the future self paralysis. When we think about ourselves as an old age, psychologically, we are imagining a stranger. It's one of the reasons people don't save. We literally think, why would I give that bitch my money? I want to spend it now. So instead, I want you to really also latch on to what Wendy said, which was at 45, if you are here, really just let yourself feel the feelings. What am I doing? And then reclaim it and understand that this does matter because it is your life. And that's why you should do this work like your life depends on it. Now, I want to say something about the younger people. If they're in their 30s. By the way, if you're in their 60s, of course, we can still talk to you too. But I think the reclamation is actually quite similar to the middle-aged reclamation. If you're in your 30s, don't you think you could still benefit from watching people like us who did waste inordinate amounts of time and perhaps shorten the amount of suffering?
Yes, I actually have some 20-year-olds that are reading my book, and I have gotten such great feedback, and I'm so happy for them. I'm like, yes, because now you don't have to repeat
Yeah,
some of the things that I did.
same.
You'll be more prepared.
That's
And
it.
one of the things, I might be a little bit partial, but one of the things I love about my book, it's less fluff and more formula. I didn't just tell you, yes, it's a little bit, I would say it's probably 30% memoir and maybe 70% guidebook.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's
Yeah.
manifesto and workbook. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not going to just tell you, hey, this is what I did and this fun. I took off in an RV. Whee! Like, no. I'm going to tell you step by step exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I truly do believe that if you applied everything in there, oh my God, your life has to change.
It
It
does.
has to change. And I want to say too, it's okay to struggle. I have struggled plenty of times in my life, and you have to be okay with the struggle. And we might have talked about this on my show, I can't remember, but I love the analogy of a butterfly, and I talk about it in the book. If you have a chrysalis and you cut the top of that chrysalis off and you take the butterfly out, the butterfly would be deformed and it would die. So the butterfly actually has to struggle to get out of the chrysalis in order for it to fly and to be free. So if you're struggling right now in your life, it's okay. Like, it's okay for the struggle, and just know, trust yourself, trust the journey. You'll get out of that chrysalis and you'll be free and you'll fly and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
So the struggle is okay. It's part of life.
I couldn't love that more. My second TED Talk was From Midlife Crisis to Midlife Awakening. And obviously, we have espoused the same nomenclature. But I begin by saying, my job in giving this talk is by saying to you, look, you're about to embark on a roller coaster ride. But by me describing to you all the roller coaster ride elements ahead, I'm going to make it easier for you. And that's really the beautiful thing that you can impart on those who are younger, those who are just entering this period, and those who are right now in the really shaky railroad car. Thank you so much for making this guide available to people, for making your podcast such an act of generosity. What is next on your journey? I mean, you're mid-book tour now, but what's next?
The next book.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, even on.
We're all junkies, everybody listening
I
out
know,
there.
it's so bad. Even my agent, my literary agent, she's like, well, I was like, yes, I've already thought of it. So yes, I have the next book in mind. It's I think I'm going to title it "What If?" Like, what if you actually did all the things that you think about doing, that you dream about? Like, who would you be? What would your life be like?
What a
So
great
yeah,
idea. I'll be
that's
reading it
next.
for sure.
And hopefully a Netflix movie, a series. That would be great.
God willing, God willing, put it out in the universe. Where can people find you, Wendy? And what do you want to invite our listeners most to check out? Your book, of course, will be linked below,
Yeah.
as will your podcast and all your information.
The best place to go is just wendyvalentine.com. And then I'm on Instagram is my main hangout, as you know, Facebook. And then the book is sold everywhere, and the audiobook too, which is read by me.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm super
Yeah, I
excited
hope you
for it.
enjoy it. And by the way, too, when you get the book, no matter which version you get, there's over $500 worth of bonuses that come with the book. There's a playbook. There's guided meditations, which I love. There's a workshop, a digital vision board, which is fun. There's all sorts of goodies in there. So make sure you get that. And that's on my website, too.
That's magnificent. That's a really tremendous added value. I hope everybody out there goes out there and reclaims their next phase. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us on the Coached podcast. What a powerful story. And I hope that everyone gets Women Waking Up and also is inspired by your journey to see how great midlife can be and how
Yeah.
wonderful the other side is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. To our listeners,
Extraordinary.
I hope that you loved this conversation as much as I did. If it sparked something within you, please subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a quick review wherever you listen. It really helps us to continue to bring us mastery. We cannot wait to bring you the rest of the series. I want to thank Wendy so much, so deeply for being here on the show. This has been another episode of the Coached Podcast. And until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep leaning into your own reinvention.